Today, we're going to look at feedback through a completely new lens, one that brings together communication strategy and, actual brain science. We're going to talk about how to rewire our brains and the brains of the people we lead for real, lasting growth. So, let's dive in.
So let's be real for a second. Does this quote kind of hit home for you? I mean, for so many of us, the second we hear the word feedback, we just brace for impact. The author Mike Conn really nails this feeling we've all had, that feeling of being on the receiving end, where you're just the target.
And that right there, that's the big mystery we're unpacking today. Feedback is supposed to be this amazing gift, right? A tool to help us get better. So why on earth does it so often feel less like a gift and more like, well, an attack? It turns out the answer is deep inside our own heads.
To really get our heads around this, let's start with this brilliant metaphor from Mike Conn's work. He calls it the human piñata problem. And honestly, it perfectly captures that broken, kind of awful experience of a typical feedback session.
I mean, think about it. You walk into a room and it feels like someone just hands your boss a stick and says, "Go on, swing away." They just keep whacking at you, hoping something good, like candy, I guess, eventually falls out. It feels like target practice. It's often delivered with these sarcastic little air quotes, and a lot of the time, it's just about their personal preferences, not your actual performance. Sound familiar? Yeah, I thought so.
So why do we react this way? Let's get into the science of it. It's not just you being overly sensitive, it's because our brains are literally hardwired for survival, and they have this powerful defense system against anything that feels like a threat.
The neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman explains it perfectly. Your brain's #1 job isn't to be creative or to learn new things. Nope, it's to keep you alive. And it does that by constantly, and I mean constantly, making predictions about what's going to happen next. It's a prediction machine, always scanning for patterns to keep you safe.
Now, a key player in all this is something called the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS. The easiest way to think about the RAS is like it's the bouncer at the nightclub of your brain. It decides what information gets in and what gets ignored. And here's the crucial part. It filters your reality to show you what you're already expecting to see.
And the RAS works hand in glove with our old friend confirmation bias. This is our natural tendency to just hunt for evidence that proves what we already think is true. So if a manager already believes an employee is a bit careless, their RAS and confirmation bias team up to spotlight every little mistake, basically turning any feedback into a final verdict that just confirms their initial judgment.
So here's the bottom line. When that human piñata feedback starts coming at you, your brain flags it as a social threat. Your prediction machine goes into overdrive, your RAS starts scanning for danger, and confirmation bias locks in the verdict, I'm under attack. And in that moment, your capacity for learning, for growth, for creative problem solving, it literally shuts down. The very tool meant for growth becomes the trigger for our brains to just curl up in a defensive ball.
Okay, so that's the problem. But what if there was a way to just bypass this whole defense system? A simple little shift that could rewire the entire interaction from a threat into a moment of trust. Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
It turns out you can flip the brain's threat switch to the off position. You can create what experts call psychological safety with just one simple, intentional word. It changes the entire game.
And that word is for. That's it, 3 little letters. When someone truly believes deep down that you are for them, their brain stops coding your input as a threat. The defenses come down, and the learning centers of the brain can finally open for business.
And just look at the difference here. Without that deep foundation of being for someone, feedback feels like a weapon. But with it, it's a tool. The conversation shifts from being an attack on a person to being a collaborative look at a problem. You replace all that friction and conflict with alignment and trust. It's a total game changer.
Okay, so we've got the mindset down. Be for them. But how do you actually put that into practice? Well, our first tool involves some pretty surprising math that kind of reveals the hidden formula for building trust.
So we all know we need a balance of praise and criticism, right? But what is that balance? Most of us would probably guess that 1-to-1 is fair. Maybe, 3 positives for every negative is pretty good. The data says that's not even close. I mean, check out the emotional math on this. A 1-to-1 ratio, it actually feels negative to the person receiving it. A 3-to-1 ratio,
still feels negative. And get this, even at 5 to 1, that's 5 positives for every 1 correction, you only get to neutral. You're just breaking even in the trust bank account.
It is only when you hit a staggering 7 to 1 ratio that the environment actually starts to feel positive and trust-building. You heard that right. It takes 7 deposits of "you're doing this well" to cover the cost of 1 single withdrawal of "you could do this better." That's the baseline for creating real psychological safety.
All right, so we've got the mindset, be for them. We have the right environment, that 7 to 1 ratio. Now let's talk about the final piece, how to deliver feedback in a way that actually changes the brain by moving from just making remarks to giving targeted reps.
This whole idea is grounded in the science of neuroplasticity. As Dr. Huberman often explains, our brains don't just form new pathways because someone told us to be more proactive. Real change, actual learning, only happens through focused attention and practice, what we can call reps, like in a workout. So here's a super practical format designed for brain change. First, name the specific behavior. Don't say "be a better communicator." Say, "In our next meeting, I want you to summarize the key decision in 1 sentence." Second, assign a rep, something like, "Let's try that for the next 3 meetings." Third, give them a cue. For example, I'll help you remember by asking, "So what's our 1-sentence takeaway?" And finally, schedule a quick review. Let's just check in for 5 minutes on Friday to see how it felt. See? This isn't a remark. It's a training plan for the brain.
This all brings us to a fundamental shift in how we should even think about feedback. It's not about judgment or evaluation in the way we've always been taught.
So let's reframe this one last time and let this one really sink in. Feedback is not a final verdict on your performance. It's simply training data for your brain. That's all it is. It's the raw information your neural circuits need to update themselves, to learn, and to build new, more effective pathways. When we see it this way, it loses all of its threat and just becomes pure potential.
And that leaves us with one final, powerful question to think about. The words you say, the feedback you give, it doesn't just end when you leave the room. It echoes. It reverberates in the minds and in the hearts of your team, your kids, whoever you lead. So the question isn't just, what feedback do I need to give? It's, what conversation do I want them to carry with them long after I'm gone? Now that's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.